Call it Taylornomics.
Super Bowl doesn't compare to this.
Everywhere Taylor Swift goes, dollar signs follow.
Taylor's sold-out tour has brought in millions from ticket sales.
The first Taylor Swift-inspired literature course.
Taylor Swift is helping get people to the polls.
Swifties in Australia have a reason to be excited.
Next February, the impact of Taylor Swift will be pored over by academics at a major but still highly unusual Swiftposium held by the University of Melbourne. The conference's co-organiser is Senior Media and Communications lecturer Dr Jennifer Beckett. At what point did you think the impact of Taylor Swift, a businesswoman, cultural icon, but also just still a pop star, needed to be the focus of an academic debate?
Well, actually, that's an interesting story because it sort of happened as a bit of a lighthearted discussion that became something really serious at the start of July this year. So we've sort of done this quite quickly, which is great fun. But I think looking at it, it's thinking about all of the impacts that she's had, as you discussed, things like her economic impact. We're looking at up to $5 billion added to the American GDP alone, coming off the back of the Eras tour. And just recently, you probably saw that she put out an Instagram post urging her fans to register to vote. And they saw a 72% increase in 18-year-olds registering to vote within a couple of hours of her putting out that post.
Wow. Wow,
Yeah.
It's staggering, isn't it? Swift economics is what many regard as the economic impact of Taylor Swift. So you're saying it's actually quite broad, her economic influence as well?
Yeah, it's incredibly broad. I mean, do you think about all of the things that it takes to put together a tour as large as the Eras tour and everything that she's bringing into a city? And then you have all the tourism of all the fans coming to those cities and a lot of them following her around the country. So there's a lot of sort of impacts around like all the transportation that gets to those concerts, of course, all of the sort of infrastructural things that have to happen around them as well. But then in terms of her album sales, that's an enormous amount of money, and particularly if you think that she's re-releasing all of her albums under Taylor's version as well. So, you know, she's an economic powerhouse.
This week, her attendance at her rumoured boyfriend's NFL game saw a 400% spike in sales for the jersey. It's businesses cashing in on Taylor Swift there?
I think that's just her fans. They have such a strong parasocial relationship with Taylor Swift that they're sort of all in. And I think they really like Travis Kelce. So they're happy to wear the jumper as well.
And is he really her boyfriend?
Well, who knows? It's early days, but it certainly seems like they're dating, according to social media. There's been a lot of posts put about. Like one of my favourites was somebody had found her notes, so they had actually put those up on Instagram as well. So, you know, it's sweet, but I think also there's been a lot of focus on Taylor Swift's love life, and perhaps we just need to let her get on with it. She is a 30-odd-year-old woman at this point.
Yeah. Now, perhaps one of the closest comparisons to Taylor Swift is Madonna, a pop star, but also writer, producer, really successful businesswoman. She transformed pop music and culture. Do you see parallels?
Oh, absolutely. I think, you know, they're doing it in quite different ways. You know, Madonna in the 80s and the 90s really sort of helped to transform sort of American ideas of sexuality and brought a lot of that to light. She's an icon in her own right. I think Taylor Swift is probably doing it in much more gentle ways, but she's also a fierce ally for LGBTQIA+ rights. And, you know, obviously that sort of really beautiful video clip for You Need to Calm Down. So I think she has just this sort of amazing capacity to bring people into those conversations in ways that I think help them to feel comfortable as well, which is very, very important from a communications standpoint.
And what's really interesting about, you mentioned the voting, but Taylor Swift has taken a bit of a risk that clearly has worked for her, where she has actually expressed political ideas. Now, she was all-American girl, and there is a risk doing that, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. Particularly if you're coming out of country and out of Nashville, you see what happened to the Dixie Chicks or the Chicks when they first made a post. So it is quite dangerous for pop stars. But what I really love is the fact that Taylor Swift took us on that journey, how she made that decision, and I think that that's probably a large reason behind why she didn't quite get the same kickback, because you could actually see how her decision making evolved in that Miss Americana documentary, which is a very, very clever piece of PR and communications if you're going to make that shift. And I think also, we've watched Taylor Swift grow up since she was 17 years old, first hitting the public limelight. And I think that there's something about watching someone grow up and realising that as you grow up, you do change your political views, you do change your ideas of what you value, and you learn a lot more about yourself. And I think she's learned a lot more about her potential impact on her fans. And I think she took that moment to step up. And I think she saw what was happening in America and decided that now, if she was going to do it, now was the best time.
You've scheduled the conference for when Taylor Swift is actually in Melbourne.
Well, she's actually in New Zealand.
So she'll be in New Zealand at the time?
She'll be in New Zealand at the time, but it is a hybrid conference, so you never know. And she'll be in Melbourne about 3 or 4 days later, I think. So we're really excited to be doing it at that time. I think there's, a lot of interest from people from Melbourne, especially. We created a major event down in Melbourne to deal with Taylor Swift. I can't think of any other pop star where a major event had to be called in order to sort of manage all of the impacts on the city. And to stop scalping as well. So, I think it's going to be a huge amount of fun. We're really excited for this.